Hi, everyone, and welcome to the book launch event, as well as our panel discussion for the History of Chartered Surveyors. My name is Amy, and I am the marketing executive at WSPC. World Scientific is a leading publishing company in Singapore, and we are in charge of marketing and publishing trade titles, along with books regarding social sciences and Asian history, as well as physics and science and math. So in the meantime, for this event, we'll be introducing the book to you, and now I'll be passing it on to Eugene, who will be the moderator of this event.
Thank you very much, Amy, and good evening, good morning, everybody. I'm going to be an MC for today, but before I introduce myself and we start the evenings or the event, I'd like to have some house rules, and basically, if you can keep yourself muted throughout the event. If you can post your questions on the Zoom chat below, or you can raise your hands, and Amy will pick you up, and you'll be able to ask a question. When it comes to that portion, I will ask you to probably introduce yourself and where you come from, and how you can direct your questions to the various speakers. But also one caveat is to kindly be informed that this webinar is going to be live streamed, and then it will be subsequently uploaded to our WSPC media channels, right? So this will be the house rules. So a little bit about myself. The next slide, please. Yeah, so my name is Eugene Seah, and I'm the Global Director and Chief Operating Officer in MyHeart Singapore. I've joined MyHeart in February 2023, and basically looking at performances of the office, technical issues, digital and technology, and also pushing the sustainability and resilience agenda within the company itself, and to ensure we have the competitive edge. But today, I am very proud to wear the hat of as a quantity surveyor, and later you'll find out why, right? So I'll be your moderator and host today. So next slide, please. So today is we are actually launching a book, and I would not want to steal the thunder of the author, right? And it actually gives me great pleasure to to introduce the author, Bill Jones, and he was going to give us a short talk about the book, and also how he got about to writing such a wonderful summary about surveying in Asia. About Bill, William Jones, or we call him from Bill Jones, is an RICS trustee and member of the RICS Governing Council. He's qualified as a chartered surveyor in 1986 and has many years of experience in real estate. Until the end of 2020, he was the global principal real estate for Rio Tinto, one of the world's largest metal and mining corporations. But prior to this, he was a regional portfolio manager with Shell, and later regional managing director of RICS, and helped to develop the RICS presence in the APAC region. And after Pan regional roles with TNT and KLL, he is now the global workplace and CRE manager with Maxion Solar Technologies, whose HQ is actually in Singapore. So without further ado, Bill, I'd like to hand it over to you and take it away.
Thanks very much, Eugene. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for being the moderator today as well. Special thanks to Amy and the team from World Scientific for their support, both today and over the past few years. And also thanks to our guest of honor today, Mr. Seah Choo Meng, to Prem Kumar Subramaniam and Mr. Tan Chu Ho, who are going to join us today, and also for the panel discussion at the end of the launch. Special thanks to family and friends and the wider ladies and gentlemen who are joining this. Thank you very much for joining this launch. And thank you to World Scientific for hosting it. This is the culmination of quite a few years of effort on my part, and is therefore with a sense of achievement and relief that today is happening. This book actually recounts the many achievements and contributions by chartered surveyors in the early years of the profession in Singapore. However, it wasn't until I got involved with the RICS Singapore branch committee back in 2007 that I started to hear these stories about the contribution of chartered surveyors and what they had contributed to the nation. This had often been understated and unrecognised because precedence was always given to the achievements of engineers, architects, accountants in Singapore, and so on. So a few years ago, I decided to change things and put chartered surveyors back on the map by getting this book written. So here we are now with the book. As well as quantity surveyors and land surveyors, which will be covered by our guests of honour, the book also features pioneers from valuation and general practice. There are too many to mention on this call, but their achievements and contributions to the nation are captured in the book. I just want to mention two people. Willie Goh, who was Goh Mia Hun, who in the early 70s set up what is now evolved into Colliers International, which is a major player in the Singapore market. And also Francis Lai, who was the first Singaporean chartered surveyor to qualify both in valuation and in quantity surveying, which is some achievement, let me tell you. There are quite a number of people who contributed photographs to the book. Again, some are on this call, too many to mention. But in addition to Choo Meng and to Ian Watson, I'm particularly grateful to the RICS Library, the Singapore National Archives, and the National Library Board, who were ever so helpful to me over the past 4 years in particular in getting to where we are now. And also the team, the Singapore National Heritage Board, who were extremely supportive in this and helped me along the way in getting to this final publication date. So again, final thanks to World Scientific for doing a great job in copy editing, printing and publishing the book. And I certainly learned a lot from them as I went along. So in conclusion from me, I'd like to thank everybody for making this event possible. And also thanks to the guests of honor for their encouragement and support throughout the past few years. It's certainly much appreciated. Okay, back to you, Eugene. Thank you very much.
Bill, thank you very much. And, really, thank you for pulling all these history together, because without this effort, this ginormous effort that you have done, I don't think anybody will be able to pull our forefathers, right, work in surveying, whether is it land or quantity surveying together. And so thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
The next guest, the first guest of honor that I'd like to introduce is none other than my father, Mr. Seah Choo Meng. And again, I'm beaming with excitement because this book actually housed something very special to me, but I'll let my father introduce to you. So Mr. Seah Choo Meng started his career in Davis, Langdon and Seah in 1968 and gained his partnership through the Asia Pacific countries and his international experience via his counterpart in UK, Australasia, North America, and South Africa up to 2008. He was the past president of the Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Valuers, or SISV for short, and past president of SPM, or the Society of Project Managers. His visionary views constantly serve as a reference point on contracts, practice, quantity surveyors practice and procedures, or even new initiatives for the industry, like collaborating contract, for example. His name is synonymous with contract practices in construction works as well. He was involved in the early stages of the implementation of the construction adjudication in Singapore. For those who are UK, dialing in is similar to the Housing Grants Construction Regeneration Act, and my friends in Malaysia, that's similar to SIPA. And he also became a founding member of the Construction Adjudicator Accreditation Committee, which regulates the appointment of adjudicators under the SOP Act. So, Mr. Seah, take it away.
Thank you, Eugene. Ms. Amy Chan, Bill Jones, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I would like first to thank WSP and Bill Jones for nominating me as the guest of honor with others for this book launch. The book is undoubtedly a comprehensive narrative on the history of chartered surveyors in Singapore, spanning the period of 1868 to 1968. I'm honored and indeed proud to officiate with others the book launch. One of the driving force, one of the driving forces of the profession during its pioneering days in Singapore was none other than my late father, Mr. Seah Meng. The book recounts the many achievements and contributions by the Chartered Surveyors in the early days of the profession in Singapore. Bill's ability to secure from the Singapore archives the historical facts that the late Mr. Seah Meng was the first Chinese chartered surveyor in the world is indeed amazing. My late father hardly ever mentioned it to the family. We are, of course, delighted to learn of this accolade, albeit only now. It is also noteworthy that the late J.B. Meshoff, who also qualified as a chartered surveyor at that time, and my late father, they were both from the same school, same alma mater, St. Andrew's School. Incidentally, that is my school, Eugene School, and my children and grandchildren, 4 generations in that school. This distinction was again unknown to the school, and the school would certainly be proud of this statistical fact. My late father commenced his career as an innocuous Chinese staff and literally worked his way up from scratch before he attained the distinction of being the world's first Chinese chartered surveyor, and later attained the reputation of the father of quantity surveying in Singapore. I must congratulate Bill for his excellent effort in producing this book. His diligent work over a period of, I think, 3 to 4 years, more like 4 years, bear testimony to his steadfast and relentless effort in bringing this brilliant book to fruition. Once again, I would like to thank WSP, Bill Jones, for making this event possible. Thanks for the invitation and the launch. Over to you, Eugene.
Thank you, Mr. Seah. And it's a really great honor to be 3 generations in Singapore. And there's also a photograph of 3 of us in the book that we have taken at the St. Andrew's Old Boys dinner held in the old secondary school field. So for those of you who haven't got the book, please do get it. And there's actually there are 2 chapters about my granddad and my father. The second guest of honor I'd like to introduce is Surveyor Prem Kumar. Surveyor Prem Kumar is a chartered surveyor and registered valuer and has been in practice for 35 years. He has extensive experience in valuation, estate agency, and property management. Surveyor Prem has interfaced with the entire spectrum of financial institutions in Malaysia, including investment banks, locally and abroad. He has also had business dealings with numerous offshore financial institutions having business interests in Malaysia. Besides financial institutions, Surveyor Prem has provided professional advice to numerous corporate entities, which are ranked within the KLSE's top 100 companies. He's also actively involved in professional institutions and advisory bodies, both local and foreign. Currently, amongst others, he is the chair of the Southeast Asia Advisory Board of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, RICS, and is currently the board member of the Board of Valuers, Appraisers, Estate Agents, and Property Managers Malaysia, and senior member of the Real Estate Valuation Expert Panel under the National Property Research Coordinator. Surveyor Prem graduated from the University of Technology Malaysia, or UTM, with top student awards in 1987, and he was the Executive Director and Deputy Managing Director of Jones Lang Wooten. He held various advisory roles in the companies such as the Tropicana Corporation Berhad and Lancome Property Consultants. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Surveyor Prem to say a few words. Surveyor Prem, please.
Hi, thank you, Eugene. Firstly, I would like to thank Bill, of course, for inviting me to this great occasion, and of course, World Scientific for hosting this very historic event. perhaps what I would like to touch on is very much about Bill himself. I've known Bill for a fairly long time, perhaps if my memory serves me right, no less than 15 years. I've known Bill very much in the RICS environment. We have been sitting on boards as well as in terms of certain committees and also interface with Bill at the time, and Bill was also an executive with RICS. What is, to me, one of the very thing which comes to the forefront of my mind is Bill's passion towards the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. We do talk a lot about the institution from time to time, but I've not actually come across someone with that amount of passion for the institution in any of those kind of interface with members of the institution. Bill's commitment and passion for the institution is something that is hardly seen amongst chartered surveyors. It's not to say that the other chartered surveyors are less important, but Bill has been focusing a lot on how the institution should, to a greater extent, maybe if this is the right word to use, reinvent itself in this region. And of course, even in terms of the global environment as well. I mean, Bill is a governing council member, and he's been part of the initiatives that have been taken to sort of revitalize the institution. So I see Bill as the best person to be the author of this book. There's no other better person that I could see, because having been a chartered surveyor for that long period of time, since 1986, and having been exposed to the various facets of the institution, Bill has all the attributes of someone who is in the best position. So the book in itself, I think, without any doubt, is probably going to be a flagship of what has been done globally, if I'm not mistaken, that something which is giving a picture of the history of surveyors in this part of the world. In fact, what the book actually conveys to the members of the institution, at the same time to the public and to the other professions, at least in Southeast Asia, for example, is the fact that the chartered surveyors have been in existence in this part of the world for a long time. It's not that it is a very new profession in Southeast Asia. Singapore, without a doubt, as what is written in the book, I have not really read the book, but from what I gather from Bill, it actually identifies who are the key individuals who actually spend time studying the profession out of the country and coming back and contributing back to society. That is actually how the profession has actually developed so much in this region. And perhaps I would even go on to say that Singapore, without a doubt, in terms of a geographical location, would be one of those leading nations in the world in as far as where chartered surveyors were actually practicing for a long time. So perhaps this is actually not known to the world. So it's hopeful that it's not just Southeast Asia and members in this region, but it's hopeful that chartered surveyors who are based in the UK or even in Hong Kong or China or India, Australia, and even probably in the States, where they will see that this part of the world is not a part of the world that was or rather that has been only developing in more recent times. It's been there for a long, long time. You know, it's got a long history. So this book actually reinforces the fact that we are not a new profession in this part of the world. We have been around, and we are no less important than any other profession, be it whatever other forms of other types of professions that are practicing in any part of the world. So that, I think, is the greatest message that this book is going to convey. That this book is going to be sitting on in the cabinets of every chartered surveyor, hopefully, across the globe. And perhaps in moving into the future, there will be more bills in the world who will be writing books like this, so that our future generations will remember that this is how it has been and how it has progressed over the years. Chartered surveyors have actually are seen as a very important group of people, not necessarily just in more recent times, but I would say even from the 70s and 80s, we have seen the professions, the various professions, be it geometric, be it the quantity surveyors, and of course the valuation and the commercial real estate and all the other pathways we have. It's all grown so much over the years, and we are becoming more and more important. And lastly, and I don't want to take too much of everybody's time, but I think lastly, what is important is that RICS in this region has had very deep roots, and it should actually should and will continue to be an institution which emphasizes a lot on development, helping out in where the direction should be in terms of the professional environment. And of course, Bill has been elected again as the Governing Council member. Congratulations to you, Bill. I'm very proud of you. You are one of those who has been well respected in Asia. And of course, you know, you're sitting in the Governing Council, which means it's a global environment as well. And I'm sure, Bill, you are in the right position to take things forward in as far as the institution is concerned. Thank you, Bill, again for the invitation, and thank you, World Scientific. Over to you, Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you, Surveyor Prem. And Surveyor Prem has given us some insights of what's happening in the book. And I did also flip the book a little bit and understood about, you know, how our forefathers, you know, they struggled and how they actually brought up the profession, and most importantly, how they work with other professionals as well, together with the architects, with the engineers, to bring up the construction and the surveying industry around Asia. So that leads me to also introduce our last guest of honor, but by no least, Mr. Tan Choo Ho. So Mr. Tan, if you can on your webcam. Mr. Tan Choo Ho was a hydrographer in the Royal Malaysian Navy and gained experience in the Royal Navy and Royal Australian Navy. His rank at the time of retirement was Lieutenant Commander, and I was trying to Google what rank was Lieutenant Commander. It's actually pretty high in the Navy. He set up the United Surveyors Private Limited with 3 other land surveyors operating in ASEAN countries. And he is a chartered land hydrographic surveyor and FIG IHO accredited Cat A hydrographic surveyor. As a managing director of United Surveyors Private Limited, he conducted surveys in all Asian countries: China, Taiwan, Maldives, Bangladesh, and even Timor-Leste, for nautical charting, harbor dredging and development, land reclamation, submarine pipelines, and cable installation, and housing and land development. He was a past president of the SISV, Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Valuers, and he served with Singapore Land Surveyor Board for 10 years and was awarded the Public Service Medal by the President of the Republic of Singapore in 2011. He was accorded a Distinguished Service Award by Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Valuers in 2012. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Tan, please.
Thank you, Eugene. Thanks, Bill, for inviting me to your launch of your book. In the last 50 years, the following prominent land surveyors in public sector set the pace for the profession in Singapore. S. Ramaswaran, Kwa Keng Sui, Jack Phillips, Lau Un Song, and Wee Soon Kiang. Among this group of land surveyors, Wee Soon Kiang was a chartered land surveyor. I was the other chartered land surveyor in private practice. Land and hydrographic surveys are a division of the RICS. In the early years, land surveys were mainly conducted manually, using theodolite for angle measurements and steel tapes and chains for distance measurement. Computations were by logarithmic and trigonometrical tables, and drawings were done manually. We have transitioned to total stations for measuring angles and distance by infrared rays. In addition, today's surveys are also conducted using LiDAR scanning on the ground and on drone in the air. Hydrographic surveys were by measuring depths with single beam, echo sounding, and positioning by the old sextant. Today, single beam echo sounding have been advanced to multi-beam echo sounding, in which the seabed scan is 100% coverage and positioning by GNSS. Processing the large amount of data can only be done by dedicated software and high-speed computers. 3D images are also available for both land and hydrographic surveys. Rapid technological advancement in the last 10 years provided the means for land and hydrographic surveyors to improve the accuracy, speed, the extent, and the coverage of surveys, and also to include inaccessible area and 3D data for many applications, which previously were not available nor possible. The book on the history of chartered surveyors in Singapore in the last 100 years is very timely. I wish it every success in the launch and should provide an inspiration for the new entrants to the profession, and for the practicing surveyor, a good reminiscence. Thank you all.
And thank you, Mr. Tan. While you were describing of all the old ways of doing surveying, it just reminisced the time when I was in Polytechnic. I still had to do my survey with theodolites and calculating miscloses and correcting all my surveys. So it was very interesting how now everything is all computerized with technology. But thank you, Mr. Tan, for for bringing all these up.
You're welcome, Eugene.
Okay, so it just, I think we have come to the most important part of the session, whereby we're going to, I'd like to invite Bill to come and unveil the book launch, and I would just like to hand the space over now to Bill, and Bill, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Eugene, and thanks to the guests of honor for those wonderful insights and for sharing their thoughts on the profession, past and present, and future. So really thank you to everyone for your comments. So, right, here we go. So I'm going to do a bit of a countdown now to the book unveiling, at which point it will be officially available. So here we go. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. It's now launched.
Congratulations.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Eugene, for the next piece.
Well, Bill, really congratulations on this great piece of work. See Raffles Hotel there.
Yeah.
And the gentleman on the bottom left hand corner is my granddad. And you know, when I was reading a book, really you brought back memories when I would have tea with him, and he would tell me of all the surveyors, whether land surveyors, hydro or quantity surveyors, and he had worked with, and the struggles that he had to go through. He had to teach at night at I think it's the polytechnics in those days.
Trade schools. Trade schools.
Trade schools, that's right. Yeah, trade schools. And then work in the day, and you will see the same students that he taught at the trade schools at night. But that has rubbed off me, and something which he has advised me to always give back to society by teaching, sharing of knowledge, because knowledge and wisdom is always, it doesn't belong to me, one person, it's always belong to the world. So that's something he's taught me. So congrats again, Bill. We are now to move to the next section, which is the moderation. So this is the panel discussion and also the Q&A. So, we have about 28 people has registered, and it's again going live stream. And, if you do have any questions, please put your questions in the chat. Or raise your hands. Amy and I will monitor it. And you can just introduce yourself on your cams, and you can just type the questions in the chat, and I'll pick it up, right? But maybe to kick it off, we have a really esteemed panel of speakers today. I would like to ask kick off the first question. Now, the book is about the past 100 years, right? And I won't fathom to say that. Can you please tell me what is the next 100 years? But the next, I would like to understand what are the esteemed panel's thoughts for at least the next 20 years. And this is where I'm coming from. I think, if I'm not wrong, one of the ministries has really said that by 2030, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 Singaporeans will be above the age of 65. By 2050, 1 in 3 will be above the age of 65. I included. By 2050, I'll be 75, right? 70. So how would you think the future of surveying will be like moving forward to the next 20, 25 years? Because not only are we having a declining birth rate, and this is not only just in Singapore, but most of the developed countries. And of course, technology is also fast picking up with ChatGPT, with AI, and so on and so forth. I recently just came up, used ChatGPT to ask for some designs, and ChatGPT came up with designs and employer's brief within minutes, and what would have taken weeks for me to look at. So what would be your views for the next 20 years, 25 years of the future of surveying in your own right? And maybe since Mr. Seah, since your screen is up first, would you like to give the first go at it?
Yeah, thanks, Eugene. Next 20 years, I think will be very exciting years for the QS, if he gets it right, because the industry is moving into new construction technology. It is moving into new procurement methods, which is collaborative contracting, all with the objective of looking at productivity, because we cannot do the same. Cannot adopt the old method of doing things. So to me, I think even in Singapore now, they are looking at collaborative contracting very strongly. But I am sad to say that not many are really jumping onto the bandwagon, or maybe not many are in the know. But the next 20 years, this is going to be very important because we have to get our construction procurement right. Because of the new technology, we have to procure efficiently and bring the cost down. It is something that we have to do as quantity surveyors. That's all I would like to say.
Right.
for the time
Thanks, Mr.
being.
Seah. Yeah.
Mm.
Surveyor Prem, do you have anything to add on that point, especially on the valuation part?
Thanks, Eugene. What is happening around the world now, as you have correctly stated, Eugene, is very much tied with AI and technology, and how machines are, from the eyes of a lot of people, machines are on the verge of taking over the world, inverted commas. Yeah. This is obviously the current generation of how things are moving forward. Now, what is important, the way I see the current environment in relation to various professions, are not necessarily just surveyors, but also the architects and engineers, even for that matter, let's say even the legal profession, for example. AI, data, information has become extremely important. Everything we do today, if I just zoom into, say, valuations, for example, whereby I've been in practice for the last 35 years, there's so much of a worry amongst valuers, not just in this part of the world, but globally, that automated valuation models, for example, is the name of the game in mortgage valuations, for example, valuations for purposes of financing. Now, if we do not embrace technology, if we are worried that we will become no longer relevant in terms of our profession, then it's going to be, it's not something which is going to be workable the way I see it. We have no choice, but we have to actually embrace technology. But what's important, the way I see it, is that there's still the need for human touch in terms of any profession for that matter. Let's look at the medical profession, right? There's so much of technology in there now. Virtually everything can be done with technology. But at the end of the day, you still need that stable hands of the doctor to make sure that whatever is being done at the end of the day, that is where the final touch is. So we are no different being surveyors. No matter whether we are quantity surveyors, we are valuers, or we are land surveyors, there's still that element of human touch which is required. And if I look at, for example, the valuation profession, looking at the market, I can't see AI actually translating how people think to the nth degree. Yes, it may be able to analyze data and provide broad-based sort of scenarios in terms of how a market works, in terms of property prices, for example, and capturing consumer behavior in as far as which are the locations which are sought after, what sort of price ranges are sought after, what type of residential units are sought after, whether they're 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and so on. Yes, all that is good, but at the end of the day, we still need the valuer to tell, to actually tell the client or his whoever that he's providing advice to, that look here, this is what it can be. But how do you look at it from whether Eugene is going to kind of make a decision in this way, or whether Mr. Tan will make a decision in this way? I can't see AI actually being able to kind of take over that function of human beings. I don't know, maybe perhaps in 50 years' time, we may have robots walking around who are maybe better than human beings. I don't know. I mean, there's a high possibility of that. The way things are moving and the way technology is being thrust upon human beings. But then again, as if we talk about the next 10, 20 years, I can't see that happening. And if we go back in the last 50 years, in fact, Eugene, you did mention last 100 years, but perhaps I would like to put it in a little different perspective. Bill's book actually is written up to 1968. We have another 55 years which has gone by from the time of his book. His book is written from 1868 to 1968. And we have got another 55 years which has gone by since so-called the end line of Bill's book. But what I'm trying to say is that technology has been in place for the last 20 years, last 25 years, right? The automation of motor vehicles, self-driving vehicles. Now they have got into enough trouble in the last couple of years where they've stopped self-driving vehicles because can it actually replace the human being of being able to control every possible situation? That's not proving. It's not proving itself, you know. So that's, I think, is one good example where technology may not replace us, but I would like to just conclude this particular question, or the answer to the question is that we must work alongside technology. Let technology help us to make more informed decisions. So our decisions become more supportable, more justifiable. And it's not like they say consultants are only there to consult. We shouldn't fall into that trap where we are just providing a report without being fully accountable, so to speak, that whatever we say in a report, whatever we actually advise as a consultant, that it is actually doable and practical. That is where technology is important. Thank you.
Surveyor Prem, I think after this, I would definitely like to hook up with you because there's one research that I'm doing on about reversible designs and designs for deconstruction. Basically, it's like, you know, you build a building up and then after 30 years, you can like Lego unhook it and build it in another place. You know, what's the valuation for that? And will valuation be affected because I'm in a second-hand building, you know, like driving a second-hand car. But, you know, to me, if you give me Surveyor Prem, you give me a second-hand Aston Martin, I will take, you know. But anyway, that's a different story altogether. But something that we can think of because it definitely will hit, especially carbon, for the next 20, 30 years. Bill, can I ask a question about, you know, your book? You have actually put things together in the last, there's several chapters about the history. You know, what do you think about something that we can learn from your book, from what our forefathers did, that is still relevant, not only today, but something that we can bring over for the next 20 years? And I probably be asking Mr. Tan this question as well, to, you know, so on the hydrographic side. But Bill, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I learned a lot myself in terms of the research in understanding how chartered surveyors thrived in Singapore from, you know, the early days right through until late 1960s, that period. And you know, collaboration with other professionals was very much key. That's a lesson learned. If you collaborate, work as teams, that's the way to succeed. Important that future generations do that and don't work in isolation. That was one important area. The other one is, you know, the importance of standards and maintaining standards in the profession. I think there's a couple of areas in the book. One particular individual called Loveday, who's wrote a few pages about his misdeeds, and that's a lesson learned about, you know, maintaining personal professional standards. Absolutely important to do that. So you've got to know what the standards are, maintain those. Otherwise, if you fall down from those, you know, you will not future-proof yourself. So I think that's another lesson learned. I think the other thing is about, you know, in the late 60s, people started to think about, or in the early 70s, about in Singapore, about energy conservation, which was driven by energy shortages. But that whole sustainability thing was something which started to be thought about in even 50 years ago. And now, of course, it's really important. But that's something that I sort of learned from the book as well. It's something that's been around for a long time. It's just now we're rethinking about what it means to us. So there are a few things there, yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Tan, what would be your feeling, your thinking about this?
Thanks, Eugene. Land and hydrographic surveys are actually involved in every aspects of development. You need the land survey and the hydrographic survey to provide the initial pre-survey for the planning and for design. And in the progression of the development, the construction part, the land surveyor set out what was designed. And at the end of the project, the survey had to be done to check whether the survey has been built in accordance with the design. And for housing development, we took one step further because you need to sell your property, you need a title deed. Therefore, we conducted cadastral survey to provide the title for the land and strata title for each unit. So in the next 20 years, with technology moving so fast, we are actually able to scan and provide you data with so much more data than you could ever seen in the past. So these 20 years on, we will provide access to area where we cannot survey, like on the deep ocean floor, where people are doing mineral exploration. And we could also ensure that the data you obtain can be done at a good speed and lower cost. If you recall the MH plane that crashed and they've been searching for the plane, this actually came from people in our profession searching for object in a small object in the bottom of the seabed. So the technology has allowed us to even penetrate several thousand meters below the surface to look at what's on the seabed. So we are not concerned with the 20 years from now. In fact, it enhances our profession. So our biggest problem is to attract the entrance into our profession, land and hydrographic survey, because this part of the profession work in the sea and in the open air. And most youngsters thought that this aspect of life is too tough for them. But we are now asking all the youngsters to come forward. There are so few of us, and you are always in demand everywhere. You saw my CV, I work everywhere because there are so short of people in our profession. Thank you, Eugene.
Yes, Mr. Tan, thank you. And you know what, you were replying. I suddenly thought about the show Black Panther 2 because they found in that show they found vibranium at the bottom of the seabed, but through intense hydrological survey that you were talking about, you know. So what they actually show in the movies, I believe in a decade time, it will really come true that they can actually do this type of scanning. And I believe there'll be a lot of mystical things in the sea, that the oceans, that will be demystified based on, you know, the advances in technology in your field especially, which is something which I'm also quite interested, especially with things like rising sea levels and, you know, how we can work with the sea, right, and to be more resilient. So thank you, Mr. Tan.
Okay, Eugene.
There has been some discussions in the meeting chat, and I see Ian Davis discussing with Bill, and Samantha has been is congratulating her father, and there's a lot of chat about what's actually happening. The first female chartered surveyors, you know. So please carry on the chat. It's and it's good to be connected in worldwide and just not within the region itself. I have another question about what Bill has actually done and written. He has painstakingly put together many chapters of the history, and if you go and see the book, it is not only there's a lot of black and white photographs, and it's about buildings, it's about the history, the learnings of people, of our forefathers. I remembered when I was in secondary school, we did study this thing called Southeast Asian history. And in Southeast Asian history, it made us appreciate what happened in our region, what happened in the past, why certain countries can't work with certain countries or can work with certain countries because they helped each other the last time, and also trade, right? And with between countries, and also how the monarchs and the kings actually helped each other. My question is, and to the panel, is that do you think it's a good idea that we can actually take Bill's book and push it to the IHLs, the polytechnics, the universities, not only just Singapore, but Surveyor Prem. Let's contact RISM to see whether in Taylor's, in UTM, can they have, I'm not talking about a module, but at least 2 hours or 3 hours that we can, it can be a non-testable, examinable subject, but something that we can still talk about the history. It means that all of us must really go to the IHL, the universities, the polytechnics, the ITEs, technical educations, to really push this so that it will not be forgotten. Because if not, it will just be a book in the shelves in the library of RICS and the National Library. So what are your thoughts about this? Because I'm very, very passionate about this, and I'm hoping that I can, through the RICS and SISV, push this with the IHLs, not only in Singapore, but regionally. And I have some people from the International Cost Engineering Council as well, from Europe, dialing in. And we can actually have this as a sort of a history lesson, and that we will not forget what our forefathers done. Any comments on that panel?
I have a go. In the recent years, our institutions of higher learning have somewhat been downplaying the surveying cost, the building. For years now, we don't have really great intake for land surveying costs, so we are very short land surveyors. That's what my good friend for 30 years, Tan Chu Ho, has mentioned. And then of late, you also notice that building and the quantity surveying costs have also been downplayed by both polytechnic and universities. And you know what's happening in SUS, right? They're trying to revamp it, push it to a high profile by doing certain things, which will be known in the market later on. So I think it's not only to know the history, but I think there's something got to be done to reconnect with the institution of higher learning. Somehow, I don't know whether you feel it, but I certainly sense this thing happening. And our present generation of practitioners in the institutions have not been able to muster the strength or take initiative to come into the market to be strong again. This is quite worrying for me, actually. What you're saying about taking the history and going back to talk to the institution higher learning, yes, that also history plus the future. I think we need to go into the market again. That is my point I'd like to contribute.
Thank you, Mr. Seah. Surveyor Prem, Bill, Mr. Tan, anything on your side? Because, well, at least I hear that, and it's true, at least the quantity surveying practice is really, we used to have 4 modules of construction technology. Now it's only just 1 module, and it's being mixed up with events management now. So it's something that we should go back to basics, but we need to make sure there is a market for that. It's thriving in Hong Kong, it's thriving in Malaysia, but not really in Singapore. But something I think the Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Valuers have to look closely. So, Surveyor Prem, Bill, Mr. Tan.
Don't mind, Eugene, if I just say a few words.
Sure, Surveyor Prem. Yeah.
Okay. I did mention earlier on that this book is a precursor for more things to come, because there is hardly any documentation in terms of how the profession has progressed over the years. The only sort of connection that is available very much that we can see in the forefront is obviously RICS having been in existence for a fairly long time. That is perhaps the only kind of connection that we can see. But that is very much a connection which doesn't really kind of come down to the ground level, so to speak, in terms of the young individual who is a teenager trying to decide which profession he should go into. And obviously in today's environment, it's like, how much money can I make? I mean, that's at the forefront of a lot of the young people. Whichever course that they choose, the first thing they ask is, do I have an easy life? As Mr. Tan correctly pointed out, a lot of them don't want to be under the sun. They want to be sitting in a very nice, cool office with very efficient air conditioning, and with the Starbucks or whatever high-level coffee shops next to their office, so they can have their favorite coffee anytime they want. But this is what the younger generation's mindset is at this current moment. I'm not sure how it's going to be in the future, but this is how they are. So the book in itself, the way I see it, is to, or rather will actually give an idea to the younger generation that this has been a profession which has been around for a long time. And let's look at the people who have gone through the profession. They are not necessarily people who are just living hand to mouth. There are a lot of people who are very successful in the surveying profession. The only thing is that we don't really see these people. And maybe being surveyors, we are the mindset is we always very subtle, and we do not actually push ourselves to show that we are at a kind of level where people look at the engineers or the doctors and they say that, oh, these are the true professionals, and surveyors are like the second or third level of professionals. They are really useless people. They don't do anything much. They only talk about this and that, but they really don't know what they're talking about. I mean, just kind, sort of putting it in a perspective of how some of the younger generation look at the profession. But it's not the case. It's a case where people have done well, and I know of a lot of my friends who have done extremely well. And they are very well to do, and they still are very humble, and they do not actually come and show off that they have so much of plenty of money and things like that. So I think this is where a book like what Bill has written is extremely important, and we must convey the message to the world. As I said earlier on, I'm not sure whether anybody else has written a book like this in terms of the surveying profession globally, because we are talking about a profession which has been in existence for 150 years. If we just take Bill's book from 1868, it's 155 years now, this year, since the profession started. So it's probably one of the oldest professions in the world. Of course, it's not the oldest profession. We all know.
Yeah, second oldest.
Yeah, second oldest. I was about to say that there's the other older profession, which is not proper for me to say it here, but so we are a very old profession. And if we were irrelevant over the years, we won't be here talking about this profession, talking about the last 150 years and how we have continued to be in existence and to be sought after But I do agree with Mr. Seah's comment, is that the institutions of higher learning may be downplaying this profession, be it any of those surveying disciplines. You know, it's not being kind of pushed to the forefront that it is something which is very unique. You know, it's like I did watch, as Mr. Tan pointed out, I did watch that particular a series on Netflix, which is talking about the seabed and what is really under the sea, you know, and how you can actually segment the whole lot with technology, and you can really find out. Perhaps MH370 can be found then, you know. I'm hoping they will find it soon with technology. So yes, Eugene, I do agree that there is not enough push by the academics. You know, it is not being pushed as a profession which has got future. This is where I think we are failing a lot, you know, because they themselves do not know how this profession is. So we need ambassadors. We need ambassadors from our profession. Mr. Seah, Mr. Tan, for example, you know, perhaps there could be a lot more interface with the varsities, the institutions of higher learning, the polytechnics and so on. Have those interface sessions. Perhaps RICS can be the platform, or even SISV can be the platform to talk to the younger generation. Tell them, you know, this profession has, in fact, has got so much of technicalities that one can just may not be able to imagine what is in the future, because the permutations are limitless, actually, the way I see it. How do we actually, as I said earlier, how do we actually establish the human consumer behavior? I'm talking more now into what I do as a professional. How do we interface with potential investors in terms of what they really want? Because sometimes they don't really tell us what they want. And how do we actually ascertain that? You know, so the trust is very important for us now to hit the younger generation, because that is where the key is. If we don't do that, we may lose our kind of standing as a profession, and we could become what would be, for example, I'm just going to quote one example before I conclude my part of this, is that in facilities management, for example, and even property management, keep aside asset management, of course, that's a little bit more investment related, but the traditional property management, which has now kind of moved on to facilities management, the role of the professional has been diluted so much that employers are only seeking executives at the mid-level, at the mid-tier level. There's no longer a very high requirement for someone who is an expert in real estate to manage your property or even to manage facilities. It is more like if you have 200 people who is able to actually run the operations, I don't need that super high level consultant or a professional to run it. But that's what is happening around the world. So we should put a stop to that, because diluting the expectations is something which is very negative for our profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Surveyor. Thank you.
Can I say
Mr.
something?
Tan, do you have anything to sorry, Mr. Seah. Yeah.
No, can I say something, Prem? First of all, call me Choo Meng, not Mr. Seah. Let you know, in Singapore's case, how things deteriorated. It was in 2006, 2007 when we had the two big IRs, the two big integrated resorts. And there was a time when they converted the building diploma course in the Polytechnic, put it together with, what was it? Eugene was saying, was it FM? Is it you were saying, Eugene?
Events management.
Okay, sorry, events management.
Yeah,
because
management.
the two IRs they wanted 10,000 in 2 years, so they downplayed the building cost and then push through the events management profession that was in line with the IR requirements. So the problem started then and continued to deteriorate. You know, on building sites, we require technicians, building technicians, building graduates. So now even on building sites, contractors are finding it difficult to find staff, and we get most of our staffing from Malaysia. All right. Then in the way you mentioned about how the profession have been restructured, you know, in the American system, the engineers, architects actually they play a middle role. It is the people at the top who are driving the business. You know, they are the ones setting the pace, doing the investments, and the engineers and architects are the ones, and the FM guys are the ones doing implementation and managing the properties. So I think by and large, I think the American model has also influenced the way our professions are being restructured, is it? You're right. They look for middle managers, not the top end people now. That's what I want to conclude. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I still have to call you Mr. Seah because calling you Choo Meng feels very funny for me. Okay. Mr. Tan, is there any would you like to continue on that? But because you know that hydrological survey is something I think even rarer than the QS profession or the valuation.
The biggest problem we have is that not many people are aware of our profession. Let me just tell you, the Australian government would allow you permanent resident if you are a IHO FIG Cat A hydrographic surveyor. That means you have qualified. You could move in there short of people from this field, but not only here, everywhere. In fact, they invited us to work in Australia, but our numbers are limited. But in our case, we send our people to university to do this course because not many students graduated from this course. You couldn't get in the market. So over the years, we've sent many to UK and Australia to be qualified. So we continue to be relevant to society because with development moving everywhere, with development, you need us. Without us, there are no development because nobody knows what the features are to design or build. Even the engineers designing, say, a VLCC berth, we need to measure current, measure waves, and measure the tide so that they had the data in which to design for the ship to berth. We also need navigational charts for ship to navigate around the world. This came from us. We survey, make the charts for them to navigate. But it is unfortunate we are unable to attract new entrants. And in Singapore, the average age of land surveyors and hydrographic surveyors are very nearly 50 years old, which is no good. We need new entrants, but unfortunately, no new school leavers are coming in. So let's take Bill's book, go to this institution, even the high school student, A level, tell them that this kind of profession exists. And we need you, you can earn a lot of money if you are prepared to work in the environment, in you know, no longer sit in the office with air conditioning. But I was on the Polytechnic Advisory Committee and we found that to attract people in, we had to add a business module in the course so that because everybody wants to be a business manager. But unfortunately, just like the engineers too, they are having problem attracting students. So they put the civil engineering and business, although business module is so little. So let's try and get Bill's book and introduce to the institution of higher learning and also the school leavers like those who are doing their A levels. then we get people into our profession.
Mm.
You can get a job almost anywhere. In fact, even when I was young, I was offered a job in many countries, not sort of lowly paid. So what you have to do is when you go and lecture them, drive your BMW in and see, look, we are not so bad after all. Then you probably attract what Prem say. Did they make good or did they not make good? But I assure you that we all make good.
Yeah, Bill, I wish you have a second win.
I remember my granddad always tells me that the I can't, is it watch and car doesn't make us a man, but you know what, Mr. Tan, I think you're right. And this day and age, you know, if we sometimes we need to show that where we are, our standing, so that the younger generations can come in. I mean, that's the facts of life. And also, you know, I've been doing some research on floating cities and what the Japanese is doing. And I believe what you're doing is going to be very, very interesting in the next 5 to 10 years when Singapore studies floating cities, because we need to know what's underneath and where's the best place to put our floating cities so that we can have 3 tiers of, you know, in the air, land, air, platform, and under platform in terms of what we can do and so on and so forth, or even rising sea level. So it's all hands on deck, really. I mean, borrowing your naval naval, it's all hands on deck, all boots on deck to really garner up your profession, especially for the next generation. So all right. I think there's some activities in the chat as well that Ian Davis agrees with Prem Kumar that even I think that the issues faced in Asia is also same in the UK, and you know, getting new entrances, you know, and with reliable tradesmen it's going to be a challenge. And you know,
just to add on that, just to add on that, Eugene, in the UK, actually, RICS at the moment is doing quite well, because what it's doing is it's going out to the schools and it's having quite a lot of success in a real push to go out to schools and tell them about how interesting the profession is. They want it to make it interesting and sound interesting rather than boring, you know, and the idea of being out and doing surveys and having that meeting people is something different to being stuck inside an office all day, that kind of thing. So at the moment, they're having a lot of success. What we need to do is you know, translate that to Singapore. So try and make and do what they're doing in the UK, which I was quite pleased to see how it's going over the past few years. Or certainly since COVID, I should say. Everything stopped during COVID, but the past year and a half, they're really building up this these school visits and visits to how shall I say, universities, polytechnics, colleges. So we've been doing it in Singapore. You know, even if you use the book as a starting point, then great. I think that's what you should do.
Yeah. But I think, Bill, that is the last, in my observation, in the last 10 years that RICS has really done an outward push. In 1997 to 99, when I was in Reading, I think there was a certain concern that, you know, if things do not change and if we do not reach out, right? That is in 1997 to 99, right? I remember they even predicted by 2030 there won't be much students left in the universities, whatever, whether Sheffield or Harvard, you know, but in the UK universities. And that's the reason why I see aggressively RICS in the last 10 years have been pushing to get the youths in, and they have now reached out to the APEC regions and so forth. And
it is an important point that Ian makes, because if professions don't protect themselves, or industry and trades don't protect themselves and, you know, and sell themselves well, you know, what happens is it gets absorbed into other professions like valuation. The real risk that it gets absorbed by the accountants, just gets sucked in, and there's no longer a valuation profession. So we have to fight to preserve it. It's the thing to do.
So I mean, I think at this point it's a good time for me to hand back over to the publishers, to Sam. But, you know, I'd like to thank our guests and friends who have dialed in from overseas, UK, Australia, and Africa, and also institutes and companies, local and abroad, to, you know, supporting this launch. So you know, without further ado, let's if you can just join me to thank the moderators, If there's no other questions, let me check. I think we are good. I would like to hand over. So let's thank the moderators first. Thank you very much, moderators. Sorry, the panelists. And I would like to hand over to Sam. And so this is Eugene signing off. Sam, over to you.
Hello, everyone. So thank you so much for attending the book launch as well as the panel discussion for the History of Chartered Surveyors. And we would just like to remind you that once again, this book is now available online on our web store at wsbc.com. You can use the code WSASOC20 to get a 20% discount when you make any purchase for this book. And if you are an institution or educational company, you guys can also email me at missachan@wsbc.com for bulk purchase orders. Without further ado, we would just like to thank everyone for tuning in, no matter where you are from. We really appreciate your attendance, even if you're watching on the live stream or on the Zoom call itself. We also want to just thank you, the honored and special guest today, Mr. Seah Choo Meng, Mr. Prem Kumar, as well as Mr. Tan Chu Ha. Also, thank you, Eugene Seah, for moderating the event and the panel discussion. And last but not least, thank you, Bill Jones, for writing the book. Now, without further ado, we hope that you all had a pleasant night and enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.